Mary, Mary, quite contrary. How does your rose garden grow? Well, we've no Mary. I'm Alan, and this is the Kerry Garden Show. But we do have a Trish, and it's a show all about roses because we need to get looking after them and making sure that they're going to be looking beautiful and blooming later on in the season. So let's go find our not so contrary Trish. Joining us back here on the Kerry Garden Show in Boyles of Killorglin is not just our gardening expert, but our rose expert, Trish. How are you, Trish?
I'm very good. I'm blooming today.
Are you blooming? You're blooming. Well, we might be pruning you back a little bit now, because that's what it's all about. How are you keeping?
I'm great, thank you.
Good. Listen, it's all about the roses this week. We're not talking about the Rose of Tralee. We're talking about the beautiful ones that'll come up in people's gardens that have been, hopefully there for a number of years maybe. And this time right now, it's pruning essential time really. But what if by some chance you might not have got to the pruning yet? Is it still too late, or where are we at the moment with roses?
Well, I suppose with roses, all right, usually I think we were saying before, you usually have them pruned before St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
And the idea of that is to get them pruned before the leaf comes on them. So anybody that's looking at Facebook, we have roses here in front of it and the leaves are on them all. Now, as you say, if you haven't got around to it, and you are actually still better to do it.
Okay,
because
so that's even with the leaves on it at the
even
moment.
with the leaves on it. So if you have a rose bush that was there since last year, the year before, it would be, I suppose, about 2.5, 3 feet high now at the moment. So what you need to do is reduce that down to about a foot. So what it is kind of 2 to 3 buds from the base. Now it's kind of hard to see it because they're all full of leaf, but you can see there the stem of it, it's only, I suppose, about 6 to 8 inches high, and you've got 3 buds. Now when I say a bud, it's where the leaves
and the leaves
are coming out of it. So if you've any old dead wood or anything, you need to cut them out of it, get into the centre of it as well, especially if there's old wood, cut all that out of it and bring it back down. But it should have been done a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, we're probably a little bit naughty on us now. We obviously got carried away with different things and stuff like that. So ideally what you're saying is this would have been done when there was no leaf, and that would have been made it so much easier to see. But now, of course, everything's coming to leaf. The great weather over the last 2 weeks has really driven everything on.
Yeah, you can even see how fresh all the leaves, and that is because of all that fine weather in the last 2 weeks. It's really brought on all the new growth on it. But for people, say, that haven't any roses in their garden.
So that's the other side. Let's talk about people who, like myself, I'm throwing myself forward for everything. But my wife would love to have roses in her garden.
Yes.
And I came in here now, when I remember seeing them last week and thinking, I must try and get one. I'll talk to Trish about them. So let's talk about someone who might want to plant some roses.
Okay, so the first thing I suppose you have to realise is, do you have sun in your garden? Because roses love sun. They love about 6 hours of sunshine a day. That's how much they need.
Okay.
And if you have that amount, they'll actually bloom an awful lot better then. But obviously, if you don't have an area that you're getting that much sun, you definitely want about 4 hours anyway.
Okay.
They won't do great in shade because the blooms come on with the sunshine, basically. Yeah. There is an odd rose that will do in part shade, but the majority of them need the full sun.
Right. So the sun drives them really.
Exactly. So you need to find your spot then where it'll get the most of the sun. Now, say for example, your soil then is the next thing. It's very important.
Yes.
They don't like too wet of a soil. So if your soil is very clay or very sticky, the best thing to do if you still want roses is to raise your bed.
And I was just going to say that because that's what you see in a lot of people's gardens, that the roses nearly seem to be nearly kind of half a foot off the ground. They're up on these kind of raised stuff.
And that is because
typically
of that.
because of drainage.
Yeah. Now, say if you've got a clay soil or a heavy soil and you want to build it up, what do you build it up with?
Yeah.
So you get fresh topsoil. You get G-up, which is like well-rotted horse manure or chicken manure. You can buy them in bags here in the garden centre as well. Never put fresh chicken manure or fresh horse manure.
Yeah, we've spoken about this before. Anything off the farm, if you do have it lying around, it must be fermented for up to 12 months.
Yes, up to 12 months.
Up to 12 months. So
until
never use
that.
If
you get, say, cow manure or whatever, it has to break down that it looks like soil.
Okay.
So and usually it's about the year. So you're having your raised bed. You've got your topsoil. You've got, we'll say, your horse manure, your cow manure. You've got even sand or grit as well.
That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Would you, like, if you had a lot of stones or something around the garden or something, would you put that on the base first, or as you're saying, maybe a bit of sand?
Yeah, sand. If you say if you had stones, you could put it at the base, so it'll give good drainage down, and then just mix a little bit of sand and mix a bit of slow release fertilizer in it as well.
Okay, fantastic.
So the more you start off with your soil, the better long term, because the nutrient, roses just absolutely love nutrient.
All right.
That's bring me on to the next thing as well. Then people are wondering, can I plant roses with other plants?
Okay.
Basically, not really.
Yeah, are they kind of a bit selfish? Would they
They're
be
greedy.
selfish?
They're greedy,
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Because again, you would always notice that in someone's garden, if they have roses, they're literally just on
a rose
their own.
bed on its own.
It is a rose bed on its own. And the reason for it is because they just
like their own. They like to get all the nutrient from the ground themselves. So say, for example, if you had a big tree behind them, obviously the roots from the tree is going to take all the nutrient, and it might take a lot of the moisture as well.
Okay.
So try have the bed on its own, out in the garden or up against the wall or something like that, where it's not competing with anything.
Look, ideally the end result will be worth it, because that's if you look after roses, and I guess this is the one thing we've always spoken on the garden show for so many years, they do require an extra little bit of work and kind of looking after.
They do,
but the benefits,
well worth it.
The smell of roses when they come into bloom and the way they look in a garden is stunning.
Absolutely fabulous. But as I say, the preparation is the most important thing. It's easy planted, so make sure you have the sun and your soil is good. Right. The next thing then is that you need to go and buy your roses. Okay. So there's all different heights with roses and different types of roses. Now the one I've here in front of me, this is a Floribunda rose.
Floribunda, beautiful orange.
An orange
colour.
one, and it's called Super Trooper. Again, all the roses that come in all different colours, reds, pinks, peaches,
and I love the
whites.
names. The names are always
Super Trooper is fantastic.
ABBA inspired.
Now, with the Floribunda rose, what's the difference between that and a hybrid tea? The Floribunda is kind of roses about that size, and they're in clusters together.
Okay, so
that's
these are one of the multiple roses in tight together, but they're a nice cluster.
So if you've got kind of a place that's a little bit more exposed, the Floribunda rose would be the best.
Okay.
Because they're clustered together, they're holding on to each other,
so
basically.
They protect each other.
Okay. So they will go. Again, the Floribunda roses, the majority of them will grow to about 2.5, 3 feet high.
Okay, right. So don't put them against a big back wall, because they might be lost a little bit.
Exactly, yeah. We can go on a little bit later. There's climbing roses then for walls as well. But they grow to about 2.5. And again, then how far apart do we plant them? So usually the Floribunda roses would be about 2.5 feet apart. And what I would do is stagger them. So when I'm saying that, you'd have one here, and then the front row, then you'd have it in the middle between the two of them.
Okay.
So they all have their own little space,
yeah.
and they'll be able to come on. If you put them in too cluttered together, what you're going to do then is the rose is just going to try and go for the sunlight,
right?
And it's going to be long and lanky,
okay,
and it's not going to look right. Whereas you want a nice
they're
bushy.
Fighting with each other then, really,
yes,
and they can kind of just
so give them
not
the
come
space,
right. Yeah.
And when you're planting a bed of roses, you're probably better off to stick to 1 or 2 colours per bed.
Okay.
Because if you've got a big mixture of flowers in the one bed, it doesn't look right.
Okay.
So say if you were driving into your house and you've seen a bed of red and yellow roses, or a bed of red roses on its own, that'll hit you straight away.
Yeah, striking,
Striking, exactly. Whereas if you've got the pinks and the peaches and the yellows and the whites, you've knocked them together.
Okay, that is something very interesting for people to consider. Yeah. So that's the Floribunda.
That's the Floribunda. And then the hybrid tea then, which is the big single rose.
Okay, right.
And they're beautiful now. They have a fine big bloom on them. They'll grow to about 3 feet high. And when you're spacing them, about 3 feet between them then as well. So we give them an
extra half a foot.
Exactly.
Right, okay. Yeah. Even though there's only one rose.
There's only one rose. But now saying that, it's not one rose per plant.
Oh, of course.
Obviously, it's one rose per stem.
Yes,
so
yes.
they will be
get multiple.
They'll be fabulous then as well. So they're the Floribundas and the hybrid teas, which would be the most popular roses for planting in beds.
Okay. Now we also have there's some pretty tall ones here at the front. What's this one?
They're actually called standard roses.
Okay, standard roses.
So what you have
that actually, it sounds like I'm getting less here. What do you mean, just standard rose? Or is this just one of the oldest type of kind of roses?
No, you can find? It's actually like your Floribunda or your hybrid tea, and it's grafted onto the top of the stem.
Okay, right. So it says actually on stemmed rose. So
yes. So like that then, the standard rose, what you have is a clear stem, and then you've got the bush on top. Now that will grow to about 2 feet high, and that'll be absolutely fabulous.
Okay.
So if you were doing your bed, what you could do maybe is put 3 of these in the centre, and put your floribundas on either side of it then.
Okay,
so
right.
that you
So that'll
actually
fill
have
the
a bit of
space of
height
it, yeah.
then, and you're bringing down the level of it as well.
And obviously you'd see those then in very kind of sculpted gardens, you know, they'd be very popular. And you'd see them,
and they'd
in
look
all
fabulous.
the Chelsea flower shows and stuff like that.
Now the other thing as well, actually, when planting them, the most important thing is that there's what's called a crown in the centre of it.
Okay.
It's like, how deep down do we go? So what the crown is kind of like the little knobbly bit.
It's where all the stems are coming out
Yeah,
together.
it's where
the
all
heart,
the stems,
it's really the
right?
heart of it, yeah.
So when you're digging your hole in the ground, dig it about twice the width of whatever size the pot is.
Okay.
And dig down deep then as well.
Right.
Now you'll be digging it out with a spade or a shovel, the hole, then get a fork and loosen up the soil around it so that when the roots come out, they'll be able to go into the soil.
Through it, yeah.
So just to loosen out the roots then, and they'll go into the soil that bit better then.
So they need to go down, and like if we're buying them in a pot like that, Trish, do they need to go down the full depth of the pot?
The full depth of it.
Okay.
And the little knobbly part
So
we're talking about stays on ground level.
Above or just a little bit above?
Just above of the ground level, yeah.
And one of the reasons for that then would be, if I remember correctly, is when you're watering them, that they need to be kind of above the ground so that water doesn't kind of...
Exactly, because you're back to the thing of it that you don't want it sitting in water the whole time.
Okay.
So like that then you have the drainage going down and the middle part then isn't going to rot or anything like that.
It's not going to be under the ground.
Exactly.
And it's just going to be above, so nothing will kind of sit in it. Okay, great.
So that should be the main thing with that then again. Now we're back to other different types of roses. These are actually very, very popular. They're called the flower carpet rose.
Carpet rose, yeah, of course.
Yeah, now these grow to about 2 feet high and about 2.5 feet wide. If you have pots, a nice big pot, you could plant one of these in a pot and it'll flower the whole summer for you.
Whole summer, wow. Okay.
From June up until about October.
Yeah.
There's very little cutting or anything like that in it either. Like when you're pruning them in the springtime, you just get a clipping shears really, or a good secateurs, and cut them back. You don't have to be exact pruning as you would with the floribundas or the hybrid teas.
Okay.
They come again in different colours. Not as many colours now as the other roses. You'll get the red, you'll get the white, the yellow and the pink.
Right.
But these are absolutely fabulous, and this is actually your standard flower carpet rose. So basically that's that on top of the stem.
Transferred on top of that,
So these are brilliant. They're really, really hardy. If you've got any little bit of exposure or anything like that, these would be the ones to go for. You can obviously plant these in pots then as well, or not in pots, in the ground, in beds. Yeah.
And I was going to ask about that. Will they take up a good little...
They take up a nice bit of space then as well, and they'll just creep along the ground. But as I say, the height is in them as well. Like they will grow to about 2.5 feet high.
And when you
as
say
well.
creep, you kind of give the impression that it might take over an area.
No,
it's not anything like that.
It's not invasive or anything like
that.
that.
Was the word I was looking
No.
for.
It just goes out to about the 2.5 feet. But they are fantastic. We'd sell an awful lot of them now. They're very, very popular.
Carpet rose is beautiful. Yeah.
And then beside you there, we've got 2 patio roses. As you were saying, they have lovely names as well. If anybody had a birthday coming up.
Birthday wishes.
Beautiful, and the one behind then is Lovely Bride.
A lovely light pink.
Now when I say patio roses, these would be kind of like the little miniature roses that you might buy a bunch of roses or whatever. They're very small. Again, height-wise, you're talking about 1.5 feet, 2 foot in height. Ideal for pots again.
Around your patio.
Around your patio, or a small little bed near the door or something that you don't want too much height there. They would be perfect
and
for
again,
it as well.
always taking into consideration that the sun is there and
yes,
gets in.
Exactly.
Okay, so just also we have some of the plant food. This is not the slow release fertilizer. You do actually have that here as well.
I do have that here as well.
Yeah.
But when these start to, when you put them down, say March, April is the best time to start feeding them. Even the roses that you've planted for previous years, and you want to give them a bit of a boost this time of the year, the rose fertilizer. So what you do is a fistful around each plant, and that will boost them on.
Brilliant.
And again, the next time you do that then is when they start to bloom, because you want to give them an extra boost then as well. And of course, the most important thing as well with roses is to look after them from your black spot, your rust, your green fly, your white fly. Now, I would recommend that when they're at this stage, you see this plant here now, and it's absolutely fabulous. There's not a blemish on it. So what you need to do then is start to spray these now. And spray them about every 2 to 3 weeks. You're better to prevent it rather than the black
react.
spot. Yes.
Yeah. You don't want to see it. You want to prevent instead of reacting to it afterwards.
So if you black spot on that, it's very hard to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And so if you do that every 2 to 3 weeks for the whole season, you should have lovely. And again, the sunshine comes into it, your soil comes into it, your feeding comes into it, all that. Now the other thing as well, people wondering what will they dress the soil with. Some people want to put the landscape fabric down and they want to put the stone
or
down.
Bark or stone.
I wouldn't really recommend the landscape fabric and the stone. For one thing, when the leaves start falling, if they do get black spot or anything,
they'll just stay around the plant.
They're on top of the stone and you can't sweep them up, you can't rake them up, and the diseases stay in the stone. So the best thing I would do is have your bare soil, and if you want to keep the weeds down, put a mulch, a bark mulch.
Bark mulch, okay.
Or even put a good generous pile of say horse manure, well rotted horse manure, or a good compost around it. But again, don't pile up around the plant itself.
Yeah, making sure to keep the crown
Yes, exactly.
clear.
Keep it out from it, and that should keep it. I mean, if you had a hoe then throughout the summer, it's only going to be soft weeds underneath it, and that should keep it clean.
Brilliant. Well, I think, and if I remember correctly, we will return a little later on in the season and keep people updated in regards to the different things that they should be doing with their roses at different times.
Yes,
and the upkeep and different like that. But for now, that's a great start. We have we've gotten people information on how they can be looking after their roses right now, and I'm sure all the experts are out there going, "I've mine already pruned."
Exactly.
So hopefully, and fair play, you're ahead of us. You're ahead of us. But listen, for that, that's all for now. I'm sounding like Daffy Duck. But that's pretty much it for the show. Trish, thanks very much. Lots of lovely roses and plenty to give you ideas on the weeks ahead. We will, of course, be back again next week. Remember to watch us on Facebook and YouTube, and do have any questions, put them in the comments below. For myself, Trish, and everyone here at Boyles, we'll talk to you next week. Happy gardening.